is Zack Snyder's best film? And then think about his best works are not derived from someone else's work. We're headed into Rebel Moon. I ended up down that rabbit hole, and I started with Dawn of the Dead. Many people think this is his best work. I'm not sure they've seen the original stuff. I don't know if they even know who George Romero is. I don't know if they know much about the history of zombie films. So I gave it a rewatch. I thought I would share with you some thoughts on Dawn of the Dead and Zack Snyder. I will say this was a really good film for him to showcase some very interesting elements, because for a zombie survival film, the bar is kind of low on experimenting with a few shots here and there, like shooting it from this way or shoot this with the foreground and background, those kinds of things. And it definitely has a very, I don't know, independent, experimental feel in like moments. They're just dropped in. It's not all overall. The film is, I think, a very solid film. I don't think it's anything extraordinary. Going back to my 5-star system, this is a nice 2.5 to 3-star film. I enjoy it, rewatchable. Ving Rhames is a movie star. Like, Ving Rhames was the key thing for me. Like, he has that Hollywood presence and feel. Sarah Polley, Jake Weber, what's his name? Mikel Pfeiffer. They're all fine. They're serviceable. I don't think there's anything bad to complain about in the adaptation. I think there were some great spiritual nods to the original work. You know, basically you have an outbreak that's taking off. We follow Sarah Polley's character, who's a nurse. And Anna is the one kind of caught up in all this, and she gets attacked by her husband early on. And then, of course, she's fleeing before she runs into the group, who ultimately hide out in a mall. And the one thing, again, the film only works at times because part of it is, and this is a zombie trope anyway, or a vampire trope anyway. They get bit, but don't tell the group. So you have to have the secret thing. The only reason those sequences work is because someone had to lie or hold back information. It relies on that a lot of the time. And then it relies on just some very interesting elements. I love the rooftop thing where there's this communication back and forth with a person who's stranded on the roof of a gun store. And I do think it was a little far-fetched to think that person would wait until they're completely almost destitute before they would try to figure out a solution for survival. So amongst the other cast members, I think Ty Burrell is the complete jackwagon. I think he was good. Michael Kelly as the tyrannical nut job security guard, and then kind of gets put in his place later on. I think his name is CJ. He was really good, but I don't think there was anything sort of like, groundbreaking and that kind of thing. But as I said, this is a really perfect film for both James Gunn, who wrote the script, and Zack Snyder to sort of like find their way into Hollywood big leagues. Like, this is a film that kind of moves everything, right? And James Gunn had already done like Scooby-Doo work, right? The live action Scooby-Doo stuff. And he loves zombie stuff, things like that. He comes from Trauma and all that. So I think the script is fine. Again, it's all very solid, right? Snyder is sort of like launched because of the commercial success of this film. Like, this is the film that kind of like, I think it 5X'd in the theater. And then, of course, it gives him an opportunity to do sort of like other projects that maybe wouldn't have fallen in his lap, like 300, ultimately The Watchmen. I think he did the Owl movie, Legends of the Guardians, right? Before he actually did Sucker Punch, which is more like he actually co-wrote it. I don't know how much credit he should get by standing on the shoulders of all of these other great people, like Frank Miller's work, like Alan Moore's work, those kinds of things. But with that said, I don't think he's a bad director or a bad creator. I think he is just very serviceable, and he sort of has like this exasperated and exaggerated reputation by the Snyder Bros because of the tragedy that kind of tore him away from DC. People hold up those movies because they're very solid interpretations of pieces of things. But if you're not big into comic books, it feels like it's all good, or if not great, right? But when you're in the comic book lore, you watch Man of Steel and I don't know, I just can't get past a couple of things with like Jonathan Kent and killing Zod and all those kinds of things. I can't enjoy Batman vs Superman because of how first off, Doomsday looks terrible. It was silly with how they kind of contrive certain elements, and then of course the Martha stuff. Oh, it's just So there are always positive and negatives with most of his projects, and I don't think that this film is any different. I know that there is kind of I guess what would be the appropriate term that they use? What, a spiritual sequel? Like it's in the vein of being a sequel, but it's not exactly a sequel. The Army of the Dead project. Haven't watched that. I don't know how I feel about even spending more time with of the zombie films. I'm trying to think of a list of how to rank it, but this would not be in my top. I think 28 Days Later paved the way for this film to even get made. I think that if 28 Days Later didn't create the concept, or Danny Doyle didn't create this concept, Danny Boyle, of speed zombies, right? Crazed, that kind of overwhelming people. This film had like moments of that, but it's still sort of like a hybrid to the original knockoff of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, stuff that Romero had created. So solid, not his best, among good stuff, and just not a director that I hold sort of in the same esteem as other people do, but I also don't totally hate and crap on his work either. I'm very interested to see what happens with Rebel Moon, and I guess there really is more than one coming. I think they're like, are they filmed back to back? I guess I'm gonna have to research it. I was looking at Rebel Moon because there's a comic book, and there's like Rebel Moon, and there's like another one, like I think it's called Scargiver. So there's like, they're coming out. So he's trying to compete and build this universe, because this was all the Star Wars stuff that they didn't want to deal with. But all right, so let me play a little bit of it and see if there's anything in here that I want to kind of make some notes of. This is just the regular trailer. As I said, I think there were some really good shots. It was you really felt like you're in this suburban neighborhood. I really loved all that. And again, back when we had filmmaking where there would be setups and callbacks with this little girl. Yeah, spoiler alert, she becomes a zombie. So makeout session, and then wake up and Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, zombies are coming, right? So I just really, and I thought all of this sold the movie really well. Like all of this, teasing all of this within this first little bit, it kind of spoilers like an intro, but it doesn't necessarily like ruin the film for you, if that makes sense. Right? It's just enough to get you involved. Like, cool, we're gonna be in a really cool zombie movie. We have this heroine that's running through and seeing just absolute chaos break out. Right? This is 2004, so we've lived through a world where we've had, The Walking Dead and many other shows and different things that have kind of been inspired from this genre, and this is before all that. So this actually was very interesting, shocking, and fun to get through. So I enjoyed it. Again, there are different shots and things that I think he does. It takes a lot of risk, and he does a really good job with it. See how the sun over the mall, as though it's like a beacon of hope. It's like up over the horizon, we can survive, or come here and you can live, kind of thing. Now, once you're in the mall, there's obviously some positive things that can help you survive, but there's other things that don't. So here's that cast I was talking about. I think it was all, and they're all. This is the news where you're just trying to get a feel for everything. Again, very good to use certain elements to kind of do some of the exposition instead of just having these awkward exposition dumps by characters. So, let's see. Rooftop communication I mentioned briefly. Again, a lot of this stuff I thought was well. There is a really funny gag that just never gets old with them spying zombies that look like something, and they take them out. So there's a Burt Reynolds, and get that Burt Reynolds, and they pop a zombie. Yeah, that was actually just as fun and clever as it is today. So some of their ideas and schemes and stuff. Oh, yeah. See, again, this the whole pregnancy subplot thing. It's like V, right? This stuff only works because you don't say so and so got bit or so and so's infected, and yeah. But it was played for an emotional moment, so they at least tried to go there.
His face being on there when that happens was really done well. So, again, film has a lot of positives. A lot of the stuff at the end, though, was it's pretty predictable in some ways. Again, in its day when it came out, I think it felt more impactful than it has on its rewatch. But at the time, having these buses retrofitted where you could run the chainsaw out the side, the end of the movie were like almost like found footage video where they finally make their sanctuary, their island, and what actually happens as like a little tease was also very clever, and I like that too. So anyway, that's my take on it. Thanks for watching. I am Pops. Hope you're having a great Halloween October month, and I will see you next time.